Today we're going to talk about heroes and villains, or better, supervillains and superheroes. In fact, who would need heroes if there were no villains? The Dark Knight, released in 2008, is the second movie of Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy and is considered by critics as one of the best superhero movies ever. It relies mostly on Alan Moore's Eisner Award winning graphic novel The Killing Joke and explores the complex nature of the relationship between the Joker and Batman. So, among the many superhero stories which bridged our generation across the new millennium, what makes this story so special? Let's try to find out. Probably many of you have come to this video because you wanted to understand something more about a specific character, the Joker. After all, apart from Heath Ledger's fantastic performance, he is undoubtedly the protagonist of this movie. He is the one who acts, plans and organises. All the other characters cannot do much more than react. The Joker is the one who runs the circus, so to speak. However, before diving into the Joker's mind, it's important to clarify a central issue which works as a watershed throughout the movie. The Joker is not crazy. Actually, pretty much the opposite. But let's proceed step by step. There are several elements which lead us to question the alleged insanity of the Joker. Firstly, he's extremely precise, if not genial, in the organisation and implementation of his plans. Secondly, he's able to easily predict the reactions of others and act accordingly. Thirdly, he explicitly states, "You're crazy."
I'm not. No, I'm not.
Of course, it would be easy to simply express a general postmodern criticism of psychiatric categories. In this case, however, the existence of different modes of action is at the core of the movie. From the outset, it's clear that the movie will be a mirror maze. Indeed, both the Joker and Batman appear surrounded by copies of themselves. The copies, however, are no match for the originals and get quickly dismissed. Their function is just to show that both the Joker and Batman embody ethical systems which can be embraced by others.
What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
In fact, when the Joker makes his appearance at the beginning of the film, there is already a wounded criminal lying on the floor, ready to point out that his conduct does not fit the criminal ethos.
Oh, criminals in this town used to believe in things. Honor, respect. Look at you. What do you believe in, huh? What do you believe in?
I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger.
It's interesting to note that since our first encounter with him, the Joker has taken off his mask. Yet such an operation does not provide the public with any additional information. Under the clown mask, there is just the clown. Unlike Batman, the Joker is a monolithic character who seems to regard everyone else, other than himself, as schizophrenic. The question of the double identity of Batman, in fact, quickly becomes an important theme. This happens in 3 instances. The first time is when Bruce Wayne meets District Attorney Harvey Dent. On that occasion, Dent predicts his own end as a villain and, interestingly, is jokingly imagined as being the Batman. The second time is when the Joker tries to blackmail Batman into taking off the mask. And the third time is when Harvey Dent claims to be Batman.
I am the Batman.
These 3 moments underscore a central tension between a democratic form of justice, represented by Harvey Dent, running for mayor of Gotham, and a non-democratic form of justice, represented by Batman. However, even in this case, each of the characters involved has to deal with a mirror image, a double, which is quite problematic. Both Wayne and Dent have to wear a mask to hide themselves, so to speak, to become a symbol of justice. As we will see, such a game of doubles, as well as its collapse, will soon become the core of the story. At a certain point of the movie, even the police lieutenant, James Gordon, usually represented as a morally solid yet often powerless character, is both dead and alive. This is, in fact, the moment of the film where a temporary victory is granted to the heroes. By disarranging the doubles, Dent pretends to be Batman and Gordon is officially dead. They manage to capture and jail the Joker. Finally, the villain and the hero have time for a chat. Nevertheless, rather than weakened, the Joker seems completely in control, to the extent that he gives Batman tips on how to conduct the interrogation.
Never start with the head. The victim gets all fuzzy. He can't feel the neck. See?
You wanted me. Here I am.
I wanted to see what you'd do.
In this scene, Batman struggles to grasp something familiar, something that he knows, to put pressure on the Joker. It goes without saying that his attempt to bestow on this unusual opponent the typical criminal objectives, such as money or killing, results in derision.
Then why do you want to kill me?
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No, you complete me.
You're garbage. You kills for money.
Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them.
From that moment on, Batman loses control of the conversation. Unlike Batman, who faces several different villains in his many adventures, the Joker has a personal and obsessive relationship with him. Indeed, the Joker immediately clears the table of what he considers vulgar topics and gets straight to the point. You and I have more in common than you have with anybody else, including the law you want to protect. After all, if you trusted the law, why be a vigilante? The answer is pretty straightforward. The Joker is an epic character, and so is Batman. What makes the character epic is not superpowers or other unnatural characteristics, but rather his unbreakable integrity. Paradoxically, there are no masks. The epic hero and his values are the same thing, and no sufferance or loss will tear them apart, or at least this is the challenge, and the Joker knows it very well. This is the core of the battle between the Joker and Batman. There is no difference between breaking the rules and losing, and this is the reason why Batman becomes a tragic hero, like the mythical Achilles, whose superpowers are enough to be consistent, but are insufficient to protect his much more human fellow citizens.
Between one life or the other. Your friend, the district attorney, or his blushing bride to be.
You have nothing to threaten me with. Nothing to do with all your strength. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you where they are.
It's in this contradiction that what can be considered the final confrontation between the Joker and Batman takes place. Batman decides to save Harvey Dent. He makes this choice not because he particularly likes Dent as a person, but because he understands the importance of Dent's survival as a symbol of democratic justice. Ironically, this is exactly the moment in which Dent is brought back to his human dimension, and he couldn't care less about his own political struggle. Dent would have died for Rachel, and there is no doubt that Wayne would have personally preferred to save her. Nevertheless, as a symbol of justice, Harvey Dent must be saved. In this traumatic moment, Dent's masks collapse onto themselves and he finally transforms into an epic villain. The coin toss becomes his only rule, a rule which is at one with his body. This transformation is completed by the Joker when he shares with Dent a small part of his own philosophy. Indeed, to convert Dent, a person who deeply hates him, into another villain, the Joker has to go all out. He proceeds as follows. First, he states that he has no plan. Society works on plans, schemes designed to control human interactions, but he does not. He just tries to show that those schemes are extremely fragile. In other words, he tells Dent that he has nothing personal against him. He just attacked him and his girlfriend because they chose to put themselves into a scheme.
The mob has plans. The cops have plans. Gordon's got plans. You know, they're schemers. Schemers trying to control their little worlds. I'm not a schemer. I try to show the schemers how pathetic their attempts to control things really are. So,
second, he states that Dent was a schemer and now is something different. He explicitly marks the change. It should be noted that both Dent's face and the face of his coin have changed. While he was a schemer, the coin had two identical faces to symbolise that nothing was left to chance. Third, he shows Dent the inhuman and paradoxical side of a so-called civil society, which calls itself just, but actually uses law and ethics as a form of collective self-righteous reassurance.
nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. If tomorrow I tell the press that, like, a gangbanger will get shot, or a truckload of soldiers will be blowing up, nobody panics, because it's all part of the plan. But when I say that one little old mare will die, well, then everyone loses their minds.
Finally, he states his own rule. He believes that chaos is fair, much fairer, in fact, than any kind of self-righteous society.
Chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's fair.
And to prove his consistency, he puts himself in the hands of Dent, who, for the first time, tosses the coin to decide the Joker's fate.
Now we're talking.
At this point, we could just continue toward the end of the movie, where, during the boat game, the Joker probably meets his first defeat. None of the two boats blow up the other, and that, for the first time, goes against his idea of human nature. Presented as a sort of psychological experiment on a relatively large scale, its resolution is nevertheless quite simplistic. Criminals are good people after all, and are regular citizens who, against their own schemes, opt for a morally acceptable option. After panicking for the entire movie, all of a sudden the mob is cool, rational, and even capable of collective martyrdom in the name of humanity. As the Joker, and a long tradition of psychology, know, people are unlikely to behave rationally in a high-pressure setting. Indeed, this ending doesn't change much, except maybe for hurriedly restoring a general sense of faith in humanity, which serves the function of sending the public home with the feeling that maybe we're not all potential monsters. Let's not get distracted. Let's try to answer our main question. Why is the Joker such an unsettling villain? Where does his narrative power come from? The answer is simple. In this movie, the Joker is lucid in his analysis. He makes fun of criminal society for its greed and thirst for power, and he mocks the self-righteous and self-indulgent civil society. He states that democratic systems have fundamental faults and often get caught in loops which make them unable to be self-critical and self-control. He says that our democracies often make unethical choices, such as bombing entire populations or torturing prisoners, and nobody bats an eye. He shows that a strategic use of the mass media system, plus a couple of homemade bombs, can make us lose our mind. He says that our political system produces and capitalises on fear by providing us with ready-made plans, and at the same time uses fear as an acceptable motivation for unethical choices. He shows Gotham that once the plan does not work, that same fear blows the system up. The Joker treats Gotham as a city of cowards with no ethics but for their own good, and for most of the movie, they prove him right. It also becomes clear that the Joker is right about Batman. He points out the fact that Batman is different and that he would like to be like the others, and also that with all his power, he can't be. He explicitly states that Batman has no trust in the justice system he's trying to protect, and that, at the same time, that system rejects the hero. Finally, he is accurate about the fact that both Batman and himself will not crack and give up on their rule. Their fight will truly be epic.
Too much fun. I think you and I are destined to do this forever.
A villain who is right is an extremely complex enemy to fight. That's what makes him disturbing. The public is given no moral high ground. On the contrary, the Joker constantly throws into question by deeds and words nothing less than human nature and the modernist project. Indeed, it is no surprise that the 80s Joker is the product of a very destabilising period, the so-called short century, which moved from the Nazi eugenics projects to the spectre of a nuclear holocaust. He is the product of the failure of the first attempts of large-scale social justice, such as socialist projects or the hippie movement, and of the rise of a global awareness. The Joker of the 80s is also deeply connected to the psychological experiments conducted in the 50s, 60s and 70s, such as the Asch conformity experiment, the Milgram shock experiment, and the Stanford prison experiment. These experiments showed how, under certain conditions, regular, law-abiding and well-educated citizens adopt irrational, abusive and even murderous behaviours. Indeed, it is no coincidence that it was during these same years that the horrors of the Nazi Holocaust were progressively being brought to the forefront of public discussion, and the question that everyone was asking was, how could it happen? In essence, the Joker is the child of the short century. The Joker embodies this very dark vision of human nature. He does not invent anything. The things he criticises happened, are happening, and are likely to happen again. So is there no way out? For once, Batman can really save us. The Joker and Batman are epic heroes, and that brings them very close together, to the extent that many commentators see them as a reflection of each other. However, there is a point where the Joker is wrong. Batman is what he is because he made a personal, ethical choice. This choice is the moral compass of Batman. Even in the worst situations, he knows where to stand. he really cannot break his rule, because that rule is the only thing that makes the Joker wrong. There's not much more to say about it. Our nature is something we all have to deal with, both personally and as a society. And if it is true that under certain circumstances we will act irrationally and violently, and that maybe in that moment those actions will make perfect sense, it is also true that there is a way to put an end to this psychological determinism. Build our identity on an ethical and personal choice. In other words, because we choose to be different. After all, why didn't Batman kill the Joker on the many occasions that he could? Well, if we could ask him this question, I suspect that the only answer we would get is, because I am Batman.